Welcome everybody back to another Star Wars spoiler review. This is Talkative Carl, and man, this feels like a long journey, man. We finally made it to the beginning of the sequel trilogy, and of course, if you want to hear all my thoughts from about like the Star Wars in chronological order, from like Episode 1, 2, 3, all Clone Wars, the original trilogy. I'm going to be like, wrapping up, Star Wars Resistance as well. It's all up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkative Carl. And yeah, it's been a journey. Whew. So we're nearly, finishing this. So yeah, now we're on The Force Awakens. Now, yeah, I'm not going to play around with it. Aside from The Force Awakens, the last two movies of the sequel trilogy sucks, or at least, you know, personally, like Last Jedi was on a good day, all right, but it's definitely some missteps, mostly because of director change, because this Force Awakens is directed by, Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker was directed by J.J. Abrams. However, he had to, deal with some other obligations, so he couldn't do The Last Jedi, which he left in the hands of, what was his name? I'm blanking on his doggone name. Rian Johnson. Now, of course, Rian Johnson like directed things like I think he directed Knives Out and some other stuff that like I did like, but as I mentioned about like the original trilogy, despite the missteps here and there through the prequel trilogy, because all of them were directed by George Lucas, who had at least a linear narrative that we can still follow along, while J.J. Abrams should have just, I know he at the time he had like other obligations, work wise with other films, so he couldn't like stay throughout the whole three film trilogy. But he should have moved some things around, or at the very least left blueprints for Rian Johnson to say like, you can basically do your thing, but you got to at least follow this narrative already set in place and keep it in this, general vicinity. It's kind of like how the MCU worked, where like, you know, uh, what's his name? Kevin Feige. He's like the top dog of everything. And he has this like, big puzzle piece. Now, or at least this like big picture here. But each director who directs like, Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy or, Captain America Winter Soldier, Civil War, each, director brings their own unique flavor to wherever they're directing, but it all fits into this big picture that makes it all narratively make sense in the overarching plot of the phases. And the trilogy is going up and down, pretty much. And fortunately, when J.J. Abrams came back to direct Rise of Skywalker, it just feels like he spent the bulk of that movie trying to correct, stuff that people didn't like in The Last Jedi. Where he should just, if he's committed to like doing something this massive, he should have just stuck with it by itself until he was completely done. And like, set aside other, or at least avoided trying to commit himself to other obligations that probably would not fit into his larger schedule. I know I'm going off on the other movies. I haven't gotten to them just yet, but I just thought I'd mention it because I feel like I might forget about it. But yeah, uh, that's why I mentioned many times in other videos where people complain about like we don't want to see no more Skywalker stories or Han Solo stories. It's like I get that, but do you want like the Skywalker saga to end on a whimper as it did? That's why like I'll be like a fully on board if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau just decided like, you know what, people, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, we're gonna do a complete overhaul. We're gonna make sure that it's gonna have like a same director, and like we'll pick up where Force Awakens left off, and make sure we'll not only correct some things, but make it all make sense. So that way, the Skywalker saga will end on a good note. Like bringing in Mara Jade, so like Luke will have somebody in between the events of Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens that he had established a relationship, grown an attachment, because in apparently since like Mandalorian and into the sequel trilogy, he bits and pieces still carrying on the tutelage of the original Jedi Order that he should have been avoiding, because that led to the Order imploding in on itself in the first place. So like bringing in Mara Jade and have her be a thing, and have them have a kid. And I don't think people mind so much of, spoiler alert, Luke Skywalker dying, but it should be not only impactful, but should be at the last Star Wars blockbuster movie in Rise of Skywalker, and had it mean something and like hit home that he left this world with another new hope, not only with like Rey, but also with his own offspring, that she and Ben Solo could teach down the line. But I digress. That's just my personal take on it, because I think the Skywalker saga should have like a book ending, so that way any other properties down the line, we don't have to worry about a Skywalker thing. We can worry about somebody else, but have the Skywalker end on a note that's satisfying. But anyway, we start off in like the Force Awakens, now the Force Order, who's pretty much just the Empire all over again, but just rebranded itself. And you have like a new leader, two new like commanders, I should say. Captain Phasma, played by the Game of Thrones woman. I keep forgetting her name. But then you also got Kylo Ren, aka Ben Solo, aka that's it. This is Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, who is played by Adam Driver. Now, I've seen some like clips from the TV show Girls, and I have seen him in that, but I never watched it to get a sense or a feel of his acting prowess. This is like the first time I actually seen Adam Driver really like strut his stuff in as in terms of an actor, and I'm thoroughly impressed. And and despite like the issues I have with Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi, all the actors involved are doing a phenomenal job. It's just like some of the writing is just it was the was the issue. And by the way, before we get into it, I still remember to this day that the Star Wars fandom can be toxic as hell, and you know who you are, and it's how effed up a lot of those people are. The fact that when like you seen like the first I think it was like the trailer of Force Awakens, where you get to see Finn for the first time as like, oh, he's a black stormtrooper. Oh my God, he's a black stormtrooper. People wilded out about that. And like, a lot of these actors who was involved in this sequel trilogy, at least Star Wars stuff as a whole, like the woman who played Rose, John Boyega is Finn. Uh, you know, it's just like at least like a few others who just gotten really dragged. Well, not even like dragged, like they got caught in something. It's just these toxic Star Wars fans are not real fans. I'm a Star Wars fan. My father is a casual fan of Star Wars. There's good, healthy fans in all sorts of franchises, but you cross that line from fandom to just straight up jackass that ruined things for everybody else by putting in death threats and all this and racial stuff and these like unjustifiable complaints that mean nothing. Then you're not a fan. You just like you're bitch kid. And it's like that always like stuck with me is how like just extremely racist people were towards John Boyega when like that first Force Awakens trailer came out. That was wild. And I think that was it's always been trolls, but I think that was really like a turning point in like movies and stuff like that when you get like a real showing of just how like the fandom just like goes crazy. But anyway, I don't know, like The Force Awakens really like took a lot of inspirations from A New Hope. I guess that's half the concerns that people had at that time. Like, so basically they're just trying to like remarket like the original trilogy to us. So like, I bet you Last Jedi is gonna be just Empire and Rise of Skywalker is just gonna be Return to Jedi. And looking back, I think it probably would have been a better idea given what we got instead. Because might as well if you're taking like properties from the original trilogies and like updating them and offer some tweaks to it, it probably would have made like them like a great trilogy. Despite maybe I guess they couldn't handle the jokes about it just being like A New Hope again. But it's just like I'd rather it being like aping off something that they already had done, but just tweaked it a bit for an updated audience. And they would have make a just a lot more money, and it'll be a lot more respectable rather than something that we got. But anyway, you meet Poe Dameron. He's getting this info about this new Death Star known as Star Killer now, pretty much named after the exact guy who's not Star Wars canon, Star Killer, who was Vader's secret apprentice. Which, by the way, I'm still waiting for Star Killer to make a return in the franchise, along with Cal Kestis. But of course, the Force Order comes by, wreaks havoc, killing a bunch of people. Takes Poe after he leaves the information in his BB-8 unit, and it goes off to not Tatooine, and it is found by Rey. I'm gonna wait until Rise of Skywalker before I let you know her little lineage. That's another people's issue, that everybody's gotta be related to everybody, blah 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't bother me so much. I mean, you already got other characters that's not part of that family. But that's why you can make more movies to focus on other people, or TV shows to focus on other people. It's not like they're going to completely, The Mandalorian ain't about like Skywalker or Han Solo, even though the Book of Boba Fett share a spotlight with Solo and Boba Fett, considering those two are like bitter rivals for quite some time. But like the TV shows ain't heavy on like these characters. Even Clone Wars was like focused on Obi-Wan and like Ahsoka and Padme. There's other people besides the Skywalker. So, it's doable. But don't crap on Skywalker in the process. But so Rey finds the BB-8 unit, and I know plenty of jokes. I even made some myself about Rey being a Mary Sue because she's just so good at everything. And it's not as bad as the live action Mulan, where it's like, it seems like it might be a little bit, but not as egregious as the live action Mulan, where you, God forbid, make a woman slightly imperfect for her to, struggle and overcome because you don't want to look like you're misogynist or whatever. But Rey did not need to be an expert pilot. She did not need to, on top of being a force user, on top of being like a, lightsaber, having lightsaber skills, and to be able to communicate all these doggone languages, including droid language. And it's like, she had to lack in something. She can't be, I would have taken away the whole pilot part of her away from her, if anything. Everything else seems like, is needed, I guess, for her character. But the pilot thing isn't required. But it just, or at least not to be able to figure out how to fix machines. Well, she can do all the other, like she can fix machines, but don't know how to fly. But then again, if she learn how to fix machines, I guess at some point she will learn how to pilot an aircraft or something. But it's just like, you gotta have her lack in something, and give that to some other character to carry that weight. But then you got Finn, who breaks Poe out, and this is the first time I actually seen Oscar Isaac in anything, and like it took me a while because I'm so bad with names. It took me up until like when he was announced as the role of Moon Knight, that he was going to take on that role. That's when like the name stuck to me. For the longest time, it's hard for me to recollect Oscar Isaac's name. I just know he was like, oh, it's Poe. Yeah, this is Poe Dameron. And like he's also an expert pilot, so it's like you can't have everybody be an extra pilot. But as great as he is, like he should have gotten more screen time. He like seemed like he crashed to his death after him and Finn's escape from the Imperial base. Now everybody's looking for this BB-8 unit who's having this information that leads. That's like that has like a piece of a map that leads to the location of Skywalker. So Finn and Rey and BB-8 jump on the Millennium Falcon, who's like has been like impounded or just taken from Han Solo, who was also taken from whoever took it from him, and so on, until like it winds up in this kind of like lot, and they take off in it, taking down some TIE fighters and an expert. This movie got some great and impressive scenes, like Kylo Ren stopping Poe's like blaster fire in midair, and it was like the banging shot of the trailer, the first trailer of this movie. But it's like, they definitely like up their game so far as like force wielding and just like epic shots that you haven't even seen in like not only an original trilogy but the prequel trilogy. They stepped up like the look of the franchise with like practicality mixed with like CGI fluidly. But then they happened upon, I know they happened upon Han and Chewie, and yeah, they mentioned that they was tracking the Millennium Falcon signal. So yeah, you could have you finally picked up the signal, but it should have taken you quite a bit of while before you happened upon them, because it wasn't like they're just floating in space, aimlessly for a long time. But no, you just boom, you're there. So they come together after dealing with some pirates from the Ray movie, and these squid aliens that really detour into something that can easily been left out. Uh, they go to not Moss Isley. I know his name's something else, but I just can't retain the name. The not Moss Isley, and talk with this shriveled up old tiny alien that's not Yoda, Maz Kanata. That she turned out to be a nothing character, because you see her and like here and there in the next two movies, but she might have spoken in some cases, but she by and large is just like a forgotten character. Like you build her up here. There's a lot of things you build up, but it's like Ryan Johnson didn't sound like he didn't take elements from here and utilize it to carry forward into the next film. Like nothing kind of flowed. That's what I'm saying. It went up and down between these films. But then everybody finds out. Well, Han already knew, he wasn't stupid, but Finn's been keeping the information from Ray at the fact that he was an ex stormtrooper, that he's trying to run because he got tired of all this carnage and everything like that, and it's like he just wasn't with it. Even though like you're at that point 30, and it's like it's like they took you as a child, like you could still hate it, but it's the fact that you now I guess, well, it's hard to say, because maybe it's just PTSD kind of hit home at that exact moment on that planet at the beginning of the movie. But now it's like because they don't have clones anymore. They ditched those after the Revenge of the Sith, leading into the original trilogy. So it's more individualized people. You like I mentioned in the Bad Batch season 1, if you want to check that out. So it's like you get main recruits, or not main recruits, just some different people across the galaxy who actually want to join and fight for the Empire. So you get an understanding somewhat that Rey is connected to Skywalker in some fashion when she touched his old lightsaber, the one I believe that Luke had before Vader cut off his arm on Cloud City. Somehow they collected the dang thing, and she had this kind of force connection. Now a lot of people was wondering or speculating, oh, she could be related to Obi-Wan Kenobi and something like that. That was one of the theories, which I would have been more than happy that it would have, if that would have been a thing. But it's like you get some people who's happy, will be happy if she's connected to Kenobi or Skywalker in some fashion, or just some other people just would have been happy where she's not connected to any one of them. But like I said, we'll get to that once we get to Rise of Skywalker. But she freaks out. She leaves. Then the Force Order comes attacking the palace, and she gets taken by Kylo Ren. Then the Resistance comes in, help them out. So aside from Rey, everybody else comes together during the Resistance camp with Leia and discuss strategy. And of course, you get this moment with Leia and Han, because they are distraught over about what happened to their son, who's supposed to have been Luke's first student. Now, technically, Baby Yoda was Luke's first student, but obviously after Book of Boba Fett, if you watch my review of that, he obviously didn't stay. But they go over strategy and find out about this another trench run kind of situation, but you gotta shoot down this like big kind of facility on this planet-sized destroyer who can absorb the power, like the heat from the sun, and harness it as fuel to fire 5 laser shots towards selected planets and destroy them all at once, rather than the Death Star, who only can take out one planet at a time. But it takes time to absorb all that heat. So with Finn's plan of getting on Starkiller, shutting down the shield so the Resistance pilots can swoop in and take down the reactor. Of course, they go in, and you get this awesome moment with Rey and Stormtrooper Daniel Craig, who it didn't take me to. I didn't find out it was Daniel Craig in that moment where Rey mind controls him into releasing her. It took me maybe a day or two after I watched my first spoiler review of this film back in the day. After I watched it, and I was like, oh, really? That was Daniel Craig? I didn't know that. Oh, by the way, I did not want to forget this because I've been meaning to make sure I input it in this video. I kid you not. I got a side story for you guys. I was highly looking forward to this freaking film. For a good year before this movie came out, I was super excited. Everybody was. Little months away. As the days approaching, I was like, I'm super excited and I cannot wait to go. I already got my ticket and blah blah blah. So it's literally days away. And I was watching this podcast or something. Wasn't even Star Wars related whatsoever. It's completely a different kind of thing I was watching. And I was scrolling through the comments, and no joke, somebody inputted Han Solo dies in Force Awakens in one of the comments. And I was furious. What kind of dipshit does that? I was like, you got nothing better to do than to just do something like that. That was the worst moment in my, not worst moment in my life, but as far as spoiling something for me related, that's the worst. That was the worst egregious thing that I've witnessed, and that made me so furious. And it's you gotta make sure I made it a point from that moment forward. I made it a point that anything that, especially that I'm looking forward to something, I made it a point. I can watch non-spoiler stuff or what whatever, if I felt like it. But it's Doctor Strange 2 or something like that. It's I'm watching other people's because there's certain reviews who get first viewings, and so they get to go to the premiere or whatever a day or two before anybody else. So when they post their little minor non-spoiler thoughts a day before everybody else gets to see it, I either avoid the video altogether because I don't even want to get spoiled whether or not it's good or not or whatever. Just want to go in completely blank. Or if not so much concerned about anything like that, but I still want to see it, but I don't also want to get spoiled. But it's what's a good example? That recent Nick Cage movie with Pedro Pascal. I forgot what it's called, but I really want to see that, sure. But I'm not craving I do not want to deal with spoilers and blah blah blah. It's not on that level. It's just above yeah, I'm going to see it. But I can easily look through the comments to where it's I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't care if something was brought up because it's not that hype. But if I felt so inclined to, I'll still watch the video, but I would avoid the comments altogether. More likely than not, that the latter is the truth. I'll just avoid the entire comment section altogether. If I still interested in seeing it, uh, I can still watch the video but avoid the comments. Or if I do not care about the movie entirely, then I'll still watch the video and I don't mind looking at the comments or whatever, because it wouldn't bother me altogether. But it's just like, please, people, don't be that person. Anywho, Daniel Craig released her, and like, she runs into Han and the others, but then Han sees Ben on the platform, because he tells like Snoke, you got the Supreme Leader Snoke, was, god awful. I won't say god awful CGI, but it's like not something like it's thoroughly impressive. But everybody's expecting him to be who's Snoke. Everybody's expecting Darth Plagueis, but no. Spoiler to like Last Jedi, he means nothing. Or at least spoiler to Rise of Skywalker, I should say. Like, he ultimately meant nothing. Just like that little orange alien Maz Kanata. It's like, ultimately she means nothing. And it's just like, Rian Johnson, god dang it. You could like, J.J. Abrams setting these people up to be something, but it didn't lead to anything. And it's like, you should have like stayed on board or left some notes for Rian Johnson to follow. So all that can, narratively mean something. Then you got this whiny little Nazi little boy that's like partnering with Kylo Ren. That it's like, all right, he's like the least favorite character out of this entire, sequel trilogy that I really did not care for. He just is like a random Nazi white dude. At certain moments, he almost goes full on German as he like shouting to the troops. But there's certain moments that they have him do this very funny. Like a moment where there was a moment with Kylo Ren, because he's getting ticked off that like they failing to find these people or the droid and his information. He's taking out his cross-bladed red lightsaber, which is the coolest thing I ever seen. I think it's the first time people saw like a cross-bladed lightsaber, and just start wrecking the panels, and there's another shot where he's wrecking the chair that Rey was tied up to, that he finds she's missing now, and he's wrecking that, and you see this. My father had like a big ass laugh when he saw this, because like he told me when he saw, because I think we saw it on different days. I think we seen it together. I can't remember. But it's like a moment when those two stormtroopers coming around the corner, and they see all this noise and like pieces of the chair being tossed out, and they stop, turn back, like nope. And that got the biggest laugh out of the theater, because that was freaking spot on funny. That was good. But as I was saying, like where was I? I was getting somewhere before I got into like the whole panel destruction thing. The Hux, that's his name. Hux. He had this little comedic, stuff when they have him do, where it's like, Kylo was trying to pull him, towards him using the Force, and his little boot skidded across the floor, and like in this, I think it was the next movie where it's like I believe it's Snoke who like from like wherever he's at on this like viewing screen. It's not that different from what Vader did, where he's like force choking people through the transmission, and it's like just causing this Hux going up and down, slamming into the ground and throwing him like a rag doll. And it's like, it's funny. It's like, pratfall funny. Han is confronting Ben, because this is a moment when before they left off on his mission, because Leia had his moments, very, Queen Padme kind of situation where it's like, there's still good in our son, because Snoke got to this kid. There's like a comic in between, leading up to the Force Awakens, whereas like, how Ben got seduced by Snoke when he's like this, messing with the boy's mind, convincing him that Luke is betraying him or whatever like that. But because Kylo Ren has this like nice little kind of sort of parallel to Vader, to where unlike Anakin, Kylo is more so seduced by the good side of the Force, while he wants to embrace the dark side, but it's just not, because as much as he's trying, and even when he kills his own father, despite like the moment where it's like, I like this line with Leia where it's like, because Han's like, if Luke couldn't save our son, like what hope do I have? And she says like, Luke is a Jedi, you're his father, and it's like that meant a lot. That was an impressive dialogue. It's like, it rang so true. It's like any parent who loves their kid more than anything in the world, it's like, if anybody can get through your own kid, it's gonna be the parent. And especially when it's a whole nother level, when it's like a connection between the father and the son. But it's like I said, unlike Vader, like Kylo's still being seduced by the light, and you even see it from this like image as Han's walking on this little platform. The light is peering behind him, it's like poking through all the darkness, and it seems like it's like enveloping Han, and he's trying to like, he's walking towards, the light is walking towards Kylo, and you hear this line where we already know what's going to happen, but you hear this line from Kylo. It's like, I feel like being pulled in different directions, and I need help. Will you help me? And it's like, oh, of course, son. And it's like he, unleashed his saber inside his father and kills him. And of course, like Harrison Ford wanted to, be killed off and return to Jedi, but that didn't happen. So they follow his wishes here and have him be killed off in Force Awakens, which is very like Ben Kenobi. Which, by the way, why would you name your kid after a guy you barely knew, and Leia didn't know at all? It's like a weird thing. But then you see like the wails and cries of Finn, Chewie, and Rey, and of course, Chewie shoots Kylo, like wounding him in like this, on his like left side of the stomach. Now, I only found about this like months ago, but there was like this art panel, like behind the scenes, kind of like this drawing boards of this scene where they initially wanted to include, because like Chewie had like Kylo dead in his sights, or he could have like, he had like a kill shot, like he could have taken this guy down immediately, but he chose to like just wound him in the stomach. And the reason behind that is there was supposed to have been, according to the storyboard, there's supposed to have been like a small little flashback with Chewie, to where Chewie recalls the time where he was playing with little Ben Solo, when he's just like a little kid, he's a cute kid, innocent kid, and you had all this fun times playing on, and he was considering to killing this, person now, the same person he was playing, toys with when he was knee high, and he had like, he obviously, I can't do this, so I'm going to just shoot him in the gut. I don't have it in me to, and this same kid who I'm basically his uncle, and like I can't bring myself to kill the someone I helped raised. I kind of wish they included that, because that would have made that even more powerful. But then, they shut down the shields, and like the resistance, like doing that thing. and while like outside, like Rey and Finn like are trying to do like a lightsaber fight with Kylo, which by the way, obviously Finn's supposed to be force sensitive, but he's never brought it up. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. He's never gonna bring it up, even though it's kind of like very hinted at. But and then also Finn's screaming is annoying because Rey, Rey, Rey. It's like, oh my God, she's not even that far away. He's screaming her name like that. God, and it's like I can't imagine like it's amazing he didn't blow out his voice box, screaming like that. But yeah, and it's like sure, they might be, well, definitely Rey's force sensitive, but Finn might be force sensitive, but they're not that skilled with a lightsaber to go up against Ben, who had ample amount of training with the Force and a lightsaber. He could have, just like with Vader in Rogue One, just made mincemeat out of these two, just like Vader did with those rebels in that hallway. It should have been no contest at all. And yeah, he was wounded, and I like the moment where he's like beating his wound, trying to make himself angry. He wants to embrace the anger and hate and all this other stuff, and that's supposed to help. But he wounds Finn, but then it's up to up down to him and Rey. And Rey gets like awesome one where she's using the Force and pulls that lightsaber to her hand, and it's badass as hell. And then of course, she's holding her own against him. And this is where the whole Mary Sue really kind of lands with me at that time, because when I was watching it in the theater, that's when it hit home for me. Because prior to that, I didn't understand people's after I heard other people's points, I understand where they was coming from after I recalled the previous scenes, but it didn't hit home for me until this moment where it's like, okay, the Mary Sue thing, I guess, is kind of like, I get it, because she is very good. And she wields like a bow staff, so sure, but still, it's not the same thing as a sword. You wield a sword and a staff two different ways, and this guy is a very skilled fighter. Since he was knee high, he had this experienced training, not only from Luke Skywalker himself, but imagine from Snoke in some sense as well. And it's she's holding her own. But she wounds Kylo across the face, and then after the rebels take down the Star Killer, it's starting to crumble and everything like that. Finn and Rey get picked up by the rebels, and Snoke calling for Kylo to complete his training. And of course, you get this moment when people really kind of even I kind of pointed out, I was it's kind of weird that Chewie, Leia didn't hug Chewie, because as attached as Rey gotten with Han, that kind of bond, wasn't to the same level as Chewie and Leia, because that's the first person she should have hugged. And yeah, they kind of corrected it in the next movie, or Rise of Skywalker, I forget which one, but they eventually corrected it. But it was kind of weird. But then R2D2, who was on sleep mode for some damn reason, for dramatic effect, had the other piece to this map that BB-8 needed, and then they found the location of Luke, and for some reason they send Rey along with Chewie to go track him down to hand him this lightsaber. And why didn't Leia go? And of course, yeah, I know she's needed for the rebels and everything like that, but it's I think it will benefit Luke and Leia both if she would have went along with them to talk with her brother, especially after losing her husband and his best friend. I think it'd be kind of ideal that these two have a talk about that. But I digress. They eventually arrive on this planet where we find eventually lizard monks. And then Rey goes up to Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, still badass though, and like holds out the lightsaber, and the movie ends with them just staring a very long time at each other. But The Force Awakens is still phenomenal. I love The Force Awakens. I know it's like, bits of New Hope here and there, but like I don't mind. I love the New Hope, and like they did elevate, it's like New Hope 2.0 kind of thing, and it's like I don't mind. That's like I said. People complain, like, or at least were worried that the next two movies just gonna be ripping off Empire and Return of the Jedi, and it's like, well, I think it would have been better if they did, but just make Empire 2.0 and Return of the Jedi 2.0, and we all loved it. But I don't want to rewrite the movie entirely. I'm just giving my 2 cents on the whole subject. But that is The Force Awakens. Holds up very well. Like I said, all the actors are phenomenal. The practical effects, the CGI, everything is working so seamlessly. But then the next two movies, I haven't watched these other two movies since the theaters. I did not like it. I did not like them at all. God, like I said, they make the prequels, make me stomach the prequels a whole lot better. But I'm going to power through it and watch them again because I haven't seen them since the theater. And then I also got to watch season 2 of Resistance, which, if you've seen my spoiler review of season 1 of Star Wars Resistance, I don't have very pleasant feelings towards that show either. But I'm going to power through these last things so I can wrap up Star Wars. Well, kind of wrap it up. I'm still going to eventually get to Kenobi series and then next year Ahsoka. But, wrap up this chronological journey we've been on so far. But, I will see you guys next week when I take care of those. So have a good night. I'll see you all soon. Take care.